Hello everyone, my name is Hong Lam. Candice is not here today because she is still away. And we are with three OIA peer helpers with us, and they will be talking with us about cultural and duality. So let's start off with introducing them, starting with Shannon.
Hi guys, I'm Shannon. I'm a second year animal bio student and I'm a return Canadian. So I'm born in Canada, but then I grew up in Hong Kong, and now I'm back to Canada.
Hi everyone, my name is Esther. I'm a second year biological science student. I'm like Shannon. I was born in Canada, but I actually grew up in Singapore, and yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Tirth. I'm in my 4th year of wildlife biology, and I'm an international student from India.
Okay, so starting off with our first question. So as students growing up are exposed to two different cultures, how do you feel like you see things differently now as compared to growing up in knowing just one culture?
Yeah, I definitely think so. It adds an extra dimension, so you see things more in a different context. Just on like exams, the way we do exams is different. Back home, like I think in most Asian communities, a lot of our final exam is counted to our final grade. Like sometimes it's even worth 100% of our grade.
Oh wow. Okay.
Whereas like here it's based like it's more, what is that word?
Cumulative.
Cumulative.
Yeah.
So like your essays, your assignments, everything counts towards your final mark. So it takes the stress of doing final exams, but at the same time, I don't know. I sort of still like the idea of having like a final exam because I'm used to it. So I think the ideal like exam situation would be to have both.
I think it'd be great to have just have one final exam where it's just like all of your marks accumulated that you've learned so far is all on this one page exam.
Yeah, that's what I'm
one
used to.
page.
So that
Yeah.
works for me.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, I'm definitely not used to that one. I'm born and raised in Canada, so well not born, but raised in Canada. So all I know is just everything just growing to your one mark. So it's accumulated throughout the semester. So that's really interesting. I didn't know about that. So that's cool.
And I guess even in the cultural aspect, I think you just gain a broader spectrum of like how to think about stuff, how to think about situations. I think you just become more open-minded if you're exposed to different cultures. And then I think you can pick and choose in which way you want to behave or which way you want to approach a situation based on the culture or like based on the surroundings and the people. So I think, yeah, it gives you, like Esther said, it gives you like a new dimension. It just adds on to it and you can it just broadens your perspective, I guess.
Yeah. So if your professor does give you 100%
Okay,
final
maybe not.
exam, you're prepared.
Maybe not. Okay. I don't know.
So we would have the advantage because we
Yeah.
have faced both sides of it. We
Exactly.
have faced 100% final and we've faced like 40%
It's
finals
different.
too.
Like,
So,
I think here that you guys would be a lot better doing presentations, which is something I'm really bad at.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
But you're learning, right? So you're improving in that part because you're exposed to these two different ways. So at least you also gain that advantage as well. So if you go back home and you at least have some experience in presentations and talking and being on a radio show, you can
Yeah,
tell your
that's
friends
true.
that now. Okay, so have you met people from your mother culture who pressured you to not change, and what is your reaction to that? So I guess this is more of an opinion of have you ever been exposed to people who tell you that you should stick to tradition, stick to one thing, one side, or choose one side instead of being on the fence, per se, of two cultures? Is there anyone who says that you should be more this or more that in that sense?
Okay, I am generally the one who tells people not to change, but that is just in the beginning. Like, especially when you're new to a place, you shouldn't try so hard to fit in. You should first analyze the culture. You should first, I think that's what I did when I came here. is that, okay, everyone does want to fit into a new culture and be accepted, but that is not going to happen in like the first few months, because you are new to the culture, and I think it just take time to analyze the culture and like I don't know, like just make your place in the culture, just figure out how it works.
Yeah.
And then what I did was, then you don't totally have to select one culture, but then you don't have to change totally as well. Like, it's not that you have to become a Canadian if you come to Canada.
Oh, okay.
So, like, you can still retain a few values from your original culture, but then even, like, to fit in here, you can, like, modify your behavior or your interactions just to be, like...
So you don't have to pick or choose. So it's just more like, find something that you think you can adapt to or you're comfortable with, and then just... adapt a little bit to that. But
and it happens over time too. Like, it wouldn't happen for me. I'm in my 4th year now, and now I feel that I'm a part of the community, which I wouldn't necessarily feel like 2 years ago, because I was still trying to find my way in the culture. So that's why I would say, I wouldn't ask anyone to pick a side, but I would tell people not to try and change so much in the beginning. Just be yourself, see how the culture accepts you, and then decide what way you want to change.
Oh, that's a good one too. It's good because it's, if you're entering into a new country or into a new culture, it's hard to find a place to fit in, because sometimes maybe your beliefs and your views are very different from someone else's and the culture that you're in. But that's not saying that you should change completely to, to fit into society. It's just more like, find your niche.
That's true, yeah.
So just find a way to make your way through life. And if things don't work out, then things don't work out. But you'll be okay. No big deal.
I think different people have different, like, they need different amount of time to adapt to a new culture as well. So some people might, they can just come in and then just explore everything. And then some other people might need to, just calm down, settle down, and then have a look, and then they start exploring a bit by bit. And then I remember seeing people, maybe especially in certain culture that they lived in a group, they tend to aggregate, come together with the same background, same culture, and just stay inside the bubbles. And they won't, like, they never come out and see different things in a new culture when they have this opportunity to do so. And because I was like that kind of person. I like being with my friend with the same culture from the same place. And then now I feel like, maybe I should do something else. That way I won't, like, waste my parents' money to sending me here and my time. And then, but I won't force myself to do so. Like, I still speak my mother language with my friends, but I will try speaking, like, other languages with other friends and try different things, like maple syrup and like I don't know, beef or tails, the dessert.
Yeah,
so good. And now I'm like trying different food first.
Yeah. Did you try it with your friends, or did you try it alone?
Yes, I try it with my friends, like with my Hong Kong friends, and we're like, oh my god, this is so good, we have to try again. And like, we're now just exploring different kind of food, because it's, I don't know, it's easier to start with when you're transitioning to a new culture.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan, because although sometimes being with friends is more like being in your comfort zone, and sometimes that can be both good because it's something that you know, but like it can also be bad because you're not exposing yourself, or you're not experimenting with the world around you. But you could also just bring your friends along with experimenting, and because you guys are already here, you're all on the same boat, you're all new to the same thing, so might as well try everything with your friends, and you have someone to tell with too. So it's a good plan to do. So any student there who is sticking with their friends, try food. Try Canadian food. That's what it is. Any advice? What kind of food would you recommend first to try?
Dessert. A lot of dessert. It's really good in
pancakes
Canada.
and maple syrup.
Pancakes
I
and
got
maple
hooked to
syrup.
that in my first semester. And I'm still not tired of that. So.
There's
Yeah.
poutine. And
Yay.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
And
Poutine.
as we're on the
Cakes.
topic of food right now, I just have this funny story that I have from my friend circle.
Mhm.
So we make it a point every year to celebrate a festival from back home. So we celebrate Diwali.
Mhm.
And we basically just wear our Indian traditional clothes and we meet at a friend's place and all that. But funnily enough, since we do that in the middle of the semester, we don't really have the time to cook.
Yeah.
We generally have a pizza party. So that's one of the ways we mix two cultures where we celebrate Diwali by eating pizzas, which is really novel because no one does that back home. So,
That's one way to do it.
yeah.
We could do that too. I think that in a similar way. I celebrated Lunar New Year with my parents, and there was one time when my parents were going to Mississauga for the Lunar Year festival, and they were having this really huge convention thing, and for some reason they were selling coffee and pizza there too, which I didn't understand why, because they alongside like fried rice, spring rolls, and noodles and all that stuff. And then somehow you had like pizza in the end and coffee and Tim Hortons coffee, and it was just like that. One of these things don't belong here. But it was fun and everyone enjoyed it, so I think that was great, and it was a great way to like celebrate, because it's not because celebrating Lunar New Year in Canada is different from celebrating Lunar New Year in China.
Totally, yeah.
So,
Imagine.
it's not like you're going to say, oh, this is not how you do it in China. We should change it to make it fit in how we do it back home. It's like, okay, we're in Canada. We can celebrate it because we're in a new culture. Let's celebrate the fact that we're in a new culture. So let's split the two and blend the two together, actually. So I think it's really interesting. And food always brings us together.
Yeah. We always end up on the topic of food somehow.
I know.
It's so easy to get carried off. Okay, so in the last week we had a discussion about culture and personality conflicts and how understanding a culture might reduce possible conflicts. So can the same thing apply to personal conflicts? Well, I guess, for example, if we're talking about like how straightforward and direct the culture of Canada is, but friends or family from your own country or from your mother country just like how direct you are becoming because you're used to Canadian culture. Should you explain to them that you're starting to adapt to this new culture and this is how you are right now, or should you adapt back into your old ways? So it's more like, I don't know, it's how like, should you move to the new culture, or should you return back to your old culture in a sense?
I think we should explain to them because this is how you grow up as a person, and they shouldn't set any barriers in that way because people want you to grow. They love you. That's why they sent you here.
That's true.
To learn.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's good to let them know, oh, this is what I learned in my new environment, and then maybe you can respect that aspect, but maybe at the same time going slowly on the changing process. So maybe just go back to what you originally are like at this moment, and then start slowly and then incorporating different elements inside so that they know this is what you learn, and then this is what other people in that culture would also do, so that you can also maybe broaden their point of view as well.
No, that's good. It's not do it too quickly, or else to say like you're kind of like the pretentious person who says, when I was in Canada, I used to do this all the time.
Yeah, I think a balancing act is necessary when you're dealing with two different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that you probably would act differently in different cultures. So once you're back to that culture, you act a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me in particular, like a thing I always struggle a lot with is my accent, because I turn it off here and people why don't you have an accent here? And then I was always really worried that I lost it forever. And then the moment I went on the plane, it came back. And also then Then I came back and said, oh, maybe I lost it again. And then I called my friend for her birthday, and then it just came back. It was like, okay, it's fine. So I think it depends on the situation. Like, if I was in a situation that resembles home, I would act more in a certain way. And then if I was here, I would act in a different way. And then I guess you could mash it together.
Yeah. If I'm with my Indian friends and if a Canadian friend walks by and I start talking to them, my Indian friends will be looking at me like, why are you talking like that? Because they're not used to me talking in a Canadian accent.
Really?
Because with them, I'm just normal. I just talk. Most of the times we just talk in Hindi because we really miss that from back home. But yeah, it's different. I think even like the accent is a big thing for me too. I switch it on and off based on the person I'm talking to, and I do that without realizing it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens to me too. Like all my Chinese accent just come back when I'm talking to my
I think that's
friends.
necessary because if you go back to your original culture, people would think that you're a snob for putting
Yeah,
up an
exactly.
Canadian
Yes.
accent. So yeah,
Potentially.
That is true.
I think people. I think
Yeah.
I think like that about people when they talk to me in a Canadian accent. I'm like, okay, you are Indian, I am Indian. I will understand everything that you say in your own accent, so you don't need to change
Yeah.
it.
I'm always afraid about that too because I speak Vietnamese, but the only method I learned Vietnamese was from my parents. And so I didn't actually go to Vietnamese school to learn the language very well. So when I was growing up, I didn't speak Vietnamese as often as I should have been. So because I was so used to going to kindergarten, I spoke in English. My friends spoke in English. So I was so used to English, I spoke English all the time at home. And my parents were trying to beat that out of me. So they were like, Hong, speak in Vietnamese. So because they didn't want me to lose that, right?
Yeah.
So I kept speaking in Vietnamese. But when I came back home, when I went back to Vietnam for the first time and I spoke in Vietnamese, I had a very noticeable, I guess you could say, Canadian accent, the way I spoke Vietnamese. And it was like very noticeable. And so it wasn't anyone's fault. It was just my fault because I didn't really practice very much. But now,
I don't think
but now it's just like,
it wasn't even your fault. It's just the way you were raised.
I just grew up that way. So, but now I've found that before I was really conscious about that. So I didn't really talk much in Vietnamese, even with people who spoke Vietnamese, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, Hong, you're so cute. Say something." And I'm just like, I don't want to say anything because it's embarrassing. But now I've gotten used to that, and I'm perfectly fine with speaking in Vietnamese regardless of how my accent sounds like or how weird it sounds like. So it's not like it's that balance where you find what works for you and you get used to adapting to your culture eventually. So it's no worry about like how different you sound to others or how pretentious or how weird you sound like to different cultures and I think that, but just find that balance where you're comfortable with. So if people think you sound weird in some language or think you're being weird because you're talking to someone else and differently or something like that, it's just how you've been and it's what you're used to. So I think that adapting should be something that you can consider, but for the most part, just be what makes you feel comfortable. And I think that that's the main thing that people should understand about. So don't worry too much about what people think. It's just more like what makes you you. So going to a new culture and learning new things and having a different accent, that's perfectly fine. So I think that's one thing. And you won't lose your accent, so you'll be fine, right?
And I think Shannon said earlier that it's while talking to people from your own culture and then trying to explain to them that the way things work in this culture, it's one of the examples is I got my family hooked onto pancakes and maple syrup too. So they know what I mean when I say, oh, I love pancakes and I love maple syrup. So yeah, I got them hooked onto it too.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, and I think now they make more pancake back home than I do.
It probably goes both ways. I got my friends in my next door neighbors last year hooked onto like the Korean culture, which is really big in Singapore. So now like the whole exam period, you're like K-pop, Korean dramas. Like, what have I done?
Yeah, now I'm watching a lot of Japanese anime because I'm living with a Japanese girl in my house. She's like watching it every time especially right before midterms and finals. And then I start
isn't
going
that when we
into
all watch stuff?
Yes.
yeah, and then I
Isn't that
go
when we
into
all get
I
into stuff?
always go into her room and start watching it with her, and then I realize, oh my god, what am I doing?
5 hours pass and you're
I
just like,
know.
I haven't studied at all.
But it's always so much fun to like learn different things and watching different I can't say improper thing during exam time, but it's always fun to do it once in a while.
Different forms of entertainment.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Yeah, especially before exams.
Yeah.
It's funny too because I think I got my dad into K-pop as well.
Oh, your dad.
Accidentally.
That's cute.
Accidentally, I swear, because I was one time showing him Gangnam Style, and then he just clicked on the related videos, and it just kind of got lost into the related videos of YouTube. So,
So funny.
so yeah, I think now he's obsessed with K-pop and Gangnam Style now.
It's a really addictive
It is.
cultural.
Okay. Moving on. So back to the talk about personal conflicts and culture. Is there a way to find balance to make everyone happy? So, in terms of making sure that, I guess you already answered this, but I guess in terms of having people that the new friends that you now have made in your new culture. Is it recording again? Nope, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. So, in response to like all the new friends that you made in your new culture that you've been, and to your old friends back at home, and what is there a way to find balance to make everyone happy, including yourself, in terms of culture? Like, if you changed, does that affect your relationship with people?
Yeah, I think it's important to keep your like friends from back home just updated about what's going on, just so that when you go back, they don't see a very drastic change in you, and they don't see you as a different person. So yeah, I think that's one thing that I do is I just keep my friends updated through WhatsApp or whatever, just telling them what's happening in my life. So at least they know that, okay, like they know the reason why if I act differently, they know why I'm acting differently. And like they know what I have seen and what I've experienced, just to give them a background. So yeah, keeping them updated would be one thing, but other thing would be to balance. Like if I'm with my friends from India, I would not talk about, like you said, you would we don't want to sound like, oh, I did this when I was in Canada. I don't want to sound like that. So I think it's like a different, like you act differently with different people from like different cultures. Yeah.
Do you find that you sometimes fall back into your old culture when you're talking to your new friends sometimes?
All the time. I think it's really difficult. I am too attached to my home culture that I found it very difficult to settle in over here. Like Shannon was saying earlier, it took me a lot of time to settle into this new culture because I am just so attached to my original, my culture. I come from a family of 7 people, like we live with our grandparents back home. And coming here, living alone was really, really difficult in the beginning when I was new to all of this. So yeah, I am really attached to my old culture so that it's really easy for me to switch back.
And nowadays, with all the technology, it's easier to connect
That's
with
true.
all your
That's
friends
true.
in Hong Kong. So like Facebook, Twitter,
Skype.
WhatsApp,
Yeah.
everything.
Talk to them about.
Skype is really important too. If any of the new students are listening, please download Skype. It's like the basic necessity of life for international students.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's a very big advice. Internet here is free. Well, it's already included in your tuition, so I suggest that you use it constantly. And if you have downloaded Skype, use that. And it's based on your internet. You don't have to buy phone cards or have a phone bill or anything like that. You just use Skype, and then you can just call back to your parents if you wanted to. So it's really good to connect to people back at home.
WhatsApp too.
Yeah,
WhatsApp
WhatsApp's
WhatsApp,
free.
yeah.
So basically everything that's on the internet, go on it. Okay, so guess you already answered this as well. Do you have any advice for new students or people who are listening in general on how to adapt to a new culture? So I guess this is for if we're expanding out to our general audience. What do you want to say to them to help them adapt to this new culture that is Canada? I can't say anything because I'm Canadian, so.
I guess mostly just put yourself out there and join a bunch of activities, go volunteer, try to be involved. That's mostly the most important. Be involved. And hopefully you find like new people. Like people here are really nice, so
Yeah,
yeah.
we had a discussion about that.
Yeah.
Canadians are very polite.
And
Yes.
at the same time, but like try to find some friends from home, but don't don't like stick to them all the time. Like you kind of want to like, I guess, have both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's good in the beginning when you find a group of friends from back home just to explore the new place with. But then you should be exploring, like you shouldn't be stuck to them.
Yeah.
And it's always good to like join a bunch of activities. In my second year, I joined the student housing and I started working with them and I met a lot of new people. It wasn't the best experience because like I had a good time, but it was just that I found hard fitting in with them. But that was a good thing. I was with a group of Canadians for a year and that made me more open and that made me more, I think that just exposed me more to the culture. And then yeah, I think so. It's good to be active in some way or the other in the community or on campus.
Yeah.
I think maybe forming a buddy system where you guys can explore together. Because if you feel comfortable with and there's someone with you, then you're more likely to go out and see things and try new things. And then I think don't feel bad for speaking your own language or doing like
Oh, yeah.
stick back
That's-
to your
that's a good
old
one.
tradition. Because it's really not your fault. It's just your own pace that getting adapting to a new culture. Because
Yeah.
I know some people is like, oh, I have to speak English because my parents pay so like the high tuition to pay for my education here, and then I'm giving away my time spending with my families and friends back in my home country, and then that's why I have to try new things and speak different languages. But sometimes it might get you like, oh, forcing you this way makes you don't like this culture that much, and then in the future you may just stick back to your own.
Yeah,
one
and the good thing
instead.
about Canada is that it's very it accepts new cultures really easily, and so you won't be seen as like a unique person for acting a certain way because they're very open to different cultures. So yeah, it's really it's a good environment to be yourself in.
Yeah. That's good. So, in general, don't experiment as much as you can and find friends, and don't feel bad if you're wanting to go back into your old culture because Canada is awesome.
Yeah.
Just like
And
Canada.
food is good.
And
Yes.
food.
Try food first.
So,
Always.
yes, I encourage everyone that's listening in, new or old, or people who are just listening in, or if you're new immigrations or new students or Canadians who are just listening in for just to learn new cultures, find someone find someone and be friends with them and experiment with everything that Canada has. Make friends. I encourage you to meet people and learn different things because Canada is very multicultural, so I'm sure you'll find something for everyone. With that in mind, thank you, Tirth, Ester, and Shannon, for being here with us. And thank you to our audience for listening in to another Radio Culturale, and hope to have you listen in another time next week.